They said the gods didn't speak to man. They sang. Every storm, every heartbeat, every thought you've ever had was part of a rhythm older than time. A pulse that the ancient Greeks called nous, the divine mind, flowing through pous, the motion of life, and returning as rhos, the eternal rhythm. This wasn't poetry to them, it was physics. They believed the entire universe was music, not metaphorically but literally, vibrating through the same patterns that shape your own thoughts. And those who could hear it, truly hear it, became more than human. To the ancients, creation began not with words but with vibration. Before Zeus hurled thunder, before Poseidon stirred the seas, there was only rhythm, the invisible order pulsing beneath chaos. They called it rhythmos, the first law of harmony. It wasn't just sound, it was structure, proportion, and the unseen geometry connecting every heartbeat to every star. And from that rhythm, three divine forces emerged, nous, pous, and rhos, the mind, the motion, and the music. Together they formed what the philosophers described as the living pulse of the cosmos. Nous, the mind of the gods. Nous was the eye behind existence, not a brain, but a cosmic intelligence. The same intelligence that breathes through lightning and logic alike. Zeus was its symbol. His thunder wasn't random destruction, it was the clarion of order, the mind of the cosmos striking through matter to remind mortals that the universe thinks. In you, that same nous lives as awareness, the silent witness that stands behind every thought. But awareness without motion is sterile. The Greeks knew the mind must move, and that motion had a name. Pous, the flow of life. Pous means foot, but for the ancients it meant movement itself. Poseidon ruled this domain, the god of tides, horses, and quakes. Everything that moved and could not be stopped. They said Poseidon was the brother of Zeus, not because he ruled the sea, but because he gave the mind its momentum. Nous thinks, Pous acts. The sea and the intellect are the same force viewed through different mirrors, infinite, restless, and waiting for form. Every decision, every emotion, every heartbeat is Pous carrying nous into creation. And when those two unite perfectly, when thought and motion become one, something extraordinary is born. Rhos, the rhythm that holds the world. Rhos is what happens when movement remembers its origin. It is rhythm, divine motion returning to its source. The Greeks said Rhos was the hidden bond between Zeus and Poseidon, between the heavens and the abyss. It was the pulse that kept every god, every planet, every living thing in sync with the cosmic mind. That's why they worship music not as art, but as revelation. Every melody was a miniature cosmos, an imitation of the divine pulse. They even encoded this in language itself. The Greek word musiki, from which music is born, literally means the art of the muses, the daughters of memory. Because to hear rhythm was to remember the divine mind that created it. When you listened deeply enough, the Greeks believed, you didn't just hear sound, you heard thought made visible. Modern physics calls it resonance. Ancient philosophy called it harmony. Both describe the same truth. Matter organizes itself according to vibration. Plato called this the music of the spheres. Pythagoras heard it as mathematical intervals. And every temple of Apollo was built to its measure, tuned literally to divine proportion. What we call intuition, that feeling of knowing something beyond logic, is the echo of nous vibrating through the rhythm of your being. Your heartbeat, your breath, your brain waves, all follow harmonic ratios the Greeks mapped long before modern science could measure them. To them, divinity was not found in heaven, it was found in resonance. They believed that Poseidon's trident wasn't a weapon, it was a tuning fork. 3 prongs representing the triad of nous, pous, and rhos, mind, motion, rhythm. When they aligned, the soul entered harmony with the divine order. Disorder, sin, madness. These weren't moral failures. They were dissonance, a soul out of rhythm with the cosmos. And when man lost rhythm, the world began to crumble. Storms, wars, chaos. Because the Greeks believed the psyche of humanity resonated with the planet itself. To restore balance, one had to listen again. Not to words, but to the silent music of existence. This was their lost initiation. to tune the soul to the divine frequency. Every myth, every temple, every prayer was built around this secret geometry. When the Oracle of Delphi spoke, the chamber's design amplified her voice into harmonic overtones. When Greek sculptors carved perfection, their proportions followed the same intervals as musical notes. When philosophers debated, their cadence echoed the rhythm of logic. Dialectic as melody, truth as tempo. To think rightly was to be in tune. To act rightly was to stay in rhythm. To live rightly was to become music. The gods were not outside us. They were the notes vibrating within us, waiting to be remembered. At the highest level, the Greeks believed that nous itself was rhythm. Mind and music were one. Every act of awareness was a vibration between order and chaos. And those who mastered that inner pulse could command reality itself. Because what is creation, if not rhythm solidified? A heartbeat stretched into form, a thought that became thunder. When Zeus spoke, his word was lightning. When Poseidon stirred, his thought became waves. And when a human learned to synchronize thought, action, and rhythm, they joined the divine orchestra of existence. The Greeks believed that behind every sensation, behind sight, sound, and touch, there was a divine rhythm, the echo of the gods still vibrating in human flesh. And when a soul remembered how to hear beyond its senses, it became immortal. They said the soul was not born once. It descended through layers of light until it reached the shadow of the body, and every layer stripped away a piece of its divine music. By the time it reached Earth, the soul had forgotten the melody that shaped it. That's why mortals feel emptiness even when surrounded by beauty, because we are exiles from the harmony that birthed us. Plutarch wrote, "Every soul participates in nous, but not every soul remembers it." Meaning every human still carries the mind of the gods, but most have gone deaf to its rhythm. The Greeks called sensation aesthesis. To them, it wasn't just perception. It was a veil, a mirror where divine truth bends into illusion. Every sense, sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, is a gate through which the soul experiences the world, but also the chain that keeps it bound to it. Because when you only believe what your senses show you, you are no longer seeing, you are being seen by illusion. The soul becomes a prisoner of the visible, forgetting that it once belonged to the invisible. But what the Greeks called Hades did not mean hell. It meant the invisible world, the place where the unseen truths of existence hide. When the body dies, the senses fall silent, and the soul awakens there, not in darkness, but in a different kind of light. A light so pure that mortal eyes cannot bear it. The ancient mystery schools taught that to reach Hades while still alive was the mark of the initiate. It meant piercing through the illusion of sense and entering the hidden layer beneath reality. Those who achieved it didn't need to die to meet the gods. They simply remembered what was never lost. The Greeks imagined the soul like a lyre. Each string was a sense, each note a vibration of life. When all strings were tuned, when the senses no longer contradicted each other, the soul began to hum again in harmony with the cosmos. This was called the restoration of divine hearing. Plato said the just soul sees with the inner eye and hears the harmony of the spheres. That harmony is not sound, it is understanding. It is what happens when thought, emotion, and perception finally move in rhythm. In that state, even silence speaks. The philosophers described existence as a circular dance between the illusion of senses and Hades, sensation and the unseen. When the soul forgets the rhythm, it descends into matter, into noise, into blindness. When it remembers, it rises toward clarity, toward the invisible world. This is why the Greeks never saw death as an end, but as a turning, a change of frequency. The body dissolves, but the rhythm continues. The same melody in a different key. To them, immortality wasn't endless time. It was perfect rhythm, a soul that never falls out of tune with its origin. But the ancients said no soul could rise alone. The rhythm that binds the visible and the invisible has a name, Aphrodite. She was not merely the goddess of love, she was the force of harmony itself, the reconciliation of opposites, the marriage of fire and water, of heaven and earth. Her birth from the foam was not mythic poetry, it was physics, the meeting of the elements at perfect resonance. To the philosophers, Aphrodite was the harmonic field that kept the universe alive. Every union, every pulse, every birth, every heartbeat was her work, the eternal synchronization of all things. Without her, the cosmos would fall silent. The ancients saw the universe as a four-part symphony. Fire was action, air was thought, water was emotion, earth was form. Each one by itself was chaos. Together, they became music. Aphrodite's power was not beauty, it was synchronization. She made fire dance with water without destroying it. She taught air to guide earth without dominating it. And in the same way, within us, she balances thought and feeling, instinct and spirit. When we lose her, when the divine harmony breaks, we fall into madness, dissonance, decay. When we find her again, we rise. Eros, her son, is the first pulse of divine attraction, the magnetic call between separated halves of the same being. He is not lust, he is longing, the ache of the soul to reunite with its missing rhythm. Every desire, every obsession, every search for meaning is Eros trying to pull you back into the cosmic harmony you fell from. He is the memory of unity disguised as passion. That's why the Greeks said Eros was older than the gods, because before creation could exist, there had to be desire for creation. Without Eros, even Nous, the divine mind, would remain still. Eros is the spark that moves the mind to sing. When Aphrodite and Eros reunite, harmony and desire, the universe breathes again. The soul, once exiled in the noise of aesthesis, begins to remember its ancient melody. It rises through the unseen, regaining its rhythm, its vision, its light, until it becomes what it always was, a fragment of Nous, vibrating in perfect consonance with the whole. This was the Greeks' highest secret. You were never human trying to become divine. You were divinity learning to remember itself, and every sensation, every heartbreak, every moment of awe or terror was simply a note, guiding you back to the original music of the gods, a temple at dusk. The last rays of the sun fade across marble statues. A wind moves through the columns like breath through a flute, and for a moment, the world hums. Low, ancient, infinite. You feel it not in your ears, but in your bones. That is the rhythm. That is the voice beneath perception, the sound that never began and never ends. The music of Nous returning through the illusion of senses and Hades, through love, through loss, through you. The divine song that calls every soul home. Imagine the world not as matter, but as melody. Every planet a note, every soul a vibration, every god a frequency beyond our range. Now imagine the ancient temples not as ruins, but as instruments. Each stone placed with precision, not for beauty, but to resonate with the pulse of the divine mind. And when the wind moved through them, they sang. That song, the one we can no longer hear, was the rhythm of creation itself, the sound of Nous becoming world, the secret that made man divine. That is the rhythm of the gods, the lost Greek secret of the mind's music, the code of harmony between thought and reality. And once you remember it, you don't need to hear the gods again, because you finally realize the gods have been listening to you all along.